Welcome to Murder Most Foul, a podcast devoted to exploring famous murder cases of our time. Some solved, some unsolved, but all fascinating and guaranteed to raise the hairs on the back of your neck. I'm your host, Jim Solanowski. Today's episode: To Catch a Killer. A serial killer turns crime victim when his own daughter is the one viciously murdered. He asks law enforcement for help, but the case goes cold. Then he turns to CSI agent Sheryl McCollum and the Cold Case Investigative Research Institute. They say there's never been a case like this in history. Sheryl and her team of experts get involved and they hatch a plan. What happens when Sheryl uses a serial killer as bait to catch a killer? Stay tuned as I ask Sheryl that precise question today on Murder Most Foul. Welcome, Sheryl.
James, thank you so much. This is overdue.
So let's start, like they say, start at the very beginning. Let's talk about your background, your education, and that you, again, this institute, explain to us what that is. And again, by the end, I will point people to your website, which has information, and certainly, like I did, ways to get in contact with you. So let's have the little curriculum vitae, shall we?
Well, the Institute started in 2004. I was teaching a night class at a college on criminal investigation, and it was from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And I noticed when I gave that first break, about 8:15, half the class would be gone when we came back. And I understood. I mean, they had already worked a full-time job that day, and they were probably ready to go home to their children and, get something to eat and rest. But I thought, I've got to keep them here because they've got to get these hours, and I can't teach half the time. We need the whole 4 hours. So at the time, I was working with D. Stewart, the sheriff in Spalding County. And I said, hey, would it be okay if maybe I took a cold case that's been sitting for a minute and let the students, as we go through the semester, as we get to one part of the investigation, let them do that with this case. And at the end, they can have an action plan that maybe we can do something with. And he said, that's a great thing. Take it. Redact everything, obviously, but take it and see what they can do with it. So that very first night, I walked in the room. I dropped the murder box right in the middle of the room. And I said, from this moment to the end of this class, this is your case. Go to work. That first night, I had to throw them out at midnight. So I'm like, I'm on to something. And then I contacted, a buddy of mine, Lou Harris, that taught at Faulkner, and another buddy, Linda Wright, that taught at Auburn Montgomery University. And I said, look, if the three of us with three different backgrounds, Lou was an FBI agent that had been in profiling, Linda was in private security. And I said, if the three of us take a case and walk our students through it from three different avenues, if we arrive at the same perpetrator, I think we're close. And if we can give law enforcement some type of action to take that may push it forward, then, I think this would be a good thing. So that's how it started. And then it just matriculated into the nonprofit. And, we've got, 50 colleges we can draw from and over 800 experts.
You're wearing a patch, and you are at CSI.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to be funny, but I think everyone can tell from your accent that you are from the South. And I believe this is in Georgia, correct?
Correct. I'm in Atlanta.
In Atlanta, which big city down there. I mean, probably plenty of crime to keep you busy.
Yeah.
And
okay.
And so again, what you're talking with the student, you got the nit that a lot of teachers. How do we, and this is not, how do we keep grammar school kids interested? These are kids who want to do something, and it's like, come on, wake up. You want to do this, and don't waste my time because this isn't required education. You're here because you want to do something. And so what is your? Do you have any? Before we go further, do you have any official police training, or is it just again criminal investigation? And how did you get to where you are expertise wise?
Well, I mean, I guess the expertise, I mean, I've been in criminal justice 44 years. I've done everything from probation to, working at the jail to doing crime scene investigation. I mean, I've got several certificates and I've done all the training that you can possibly do. And, here's the thing that for me, whether I'm teaching at the college level or at an academy, it's important that I give them a 361 of what's going on. The academic part is great. The experience is great. And I don't think you can really discount either one. They're both wonderful. But when they can come together, I think that's when some things that are really incredible start to happen. So if you've got somebody that is street smart and a lot of common sense, they're going to do well. But if you give them a little formal training, it's just going to elevate not just their understanding, but what they're able to produce later on. So I think it's a great combination.
How long have you been doing the teaching, the official kind of academy stuff? I'm trying to get an idea of these kids, some of the students that you had. You've been doing this long enough that they're now out there. They could be police right now or FBI or.
Sure. I've got students that are in the FBI, TSA, Homeland Security. I've got a student that is a lieutenant, a captain, a major. They've done very, very well. But I started teaching at the local Georgia police academies in the 1990s. And then I started teaching college in 2000 and taught until 2010, 2012, somewhere in there. And then once my children got a little older, I stopped that part-time job.
And well, we're going to talk it's on your website and I printed it out. There's a group, we talked a little before we went on air, and you've got some notable cases. They're not all of them, but the ones people would know about. So you have a list of those. And, we also have to, I'm sorry, I would put it in the intro. You are an Emmy Award winner. Is that correct? She laughs, ladies and gentlemen, she laughs, but you are.
Because listen, y'all, you cannot take away the importance of good friends. And Karen Greer is a good friend of mine. She is the face of what you would call CSI Atlanta. This was her baby. She's the media mogul. She's the person that was the face of it. And what she put together was an incredible series. And we were nominated 3 times. We won once. So yes, I have an Emmy at my house, but it's nothing that was ever on anybody's, dance card. I mean, it's kind of insane to think that there's a crime scene investigator that has an Emmy. I mean, it's
nothing wrong with that at all.
Hey, I dig it, but I'm just saying,
So, what I want to talk about now, again, I mentioned again, you've written a book that is, and you're around. That's why you're here today. You're around various places, doing some release publicity because it's not officially, I guess, May 12th, something like coming up in a couple of days after Mother's Day. And so people can get it there. You can pre-order it at various places, like Barnes and Noble and that whatnot. And I love the title, Swans Don't Swim in a Sewer. I would agree with you. I live on the water and we have swans and it's a beautiful place. They don't swim in the sewer, I don't think. So I want you to talk as much as you feel that will help promote the book, but I want you to give so much, I did one where the ending of the book was a big twist. And so we just left it with, ladies and gentlemen, we've covered this story. It's amazing. But guess what? There's a twist. And the only way you're going to get it is read the book. So I'm not sure if it fits the story, but you obviously already to sell it on Amazon that they give you a little thumbnail of what it's about. And I think my memory of picking up what they said was that this was a real case, and it was a case either you and you'll tell us all about this where I'm wrong, that either you and or you and students worked on. I don't know if it was cold or still hot, and you used a very interesting, so I'm looking for subject course to help you with this. So tell us as much as you'd like to.
James, this is a case unlike any that I've ever worked in my career. And no matter who I have talked to about it, they've never had a case like it. It's a serial killer whose daughter was brutally murdered, and he reached out and asked if I would help solve it because it had gone cold. Well, that's never happened to me. So I was immediately intrigued. But the way it came to me was I was given a speech, and it was a formal event. So everybody's dressed up in black tie. And in my peripheral, I see a woman come in the door, and she's wearing Bermuda shorts, a tank top, and a straw hat. And she's holding an 8x10 frame. So I figured that's a mama of a missing or murdered child. So when I was done, I walked up to her. She turned the frame around and said, "This is my daughter, Melissa. She was beheaded in Atlanta. Will you help me?" And I said yes immediately. I mean, how could I say no? But as I was driving home that night, I kept thinking, how do I not this case? Because what happens, our world is a small group, really. And we tend to meet at a cop bar or go to dinner or have other social events where everybody talks about their craziest case, their scariest moment, their biggest, F up. And I have never heard of a 20-something-year-old Caucasian female beheaded. How have I missed it? I would not have missed that case. So here's how I missed it. Atlanta didn't have it. And here's how they didn't have it. A skull was found in the middle of Avon Avenue. Just the skull. A black trash bag had been ripped open by what we suspect is either a canine or a coyote. When they got the skull, it was misidentified as a Caucasian male. We had no missing Caucasian males. We had no male bodies with no head. So it was literally put on a shelf. Melissa's parents knew she was missing. They go to the Atlanta Police Department and say, "Our daughter's missing." The facts are she's married, 2 young children, has her own home. She can run away if she wants to. She doesn't have to contact her parents if she doesn't want to. So Atlanta politely explained, "We can't take this case. There is no case. There's no evidence of foul play. There's no blood. There's no, ripped clothing. There's nothing that would suggest something has happened to her." So then her mama, not giving up, goes to her local police and says, "Will you please do a police report?" They told her the same thing. "We can't. There's no crime here." So this goes on for a while. Finally, she goes back to her hometown police department and literally begs them. This one officer, to his credit, says, "I cannot start an investigation of a missing person, but I will take a report so there's a paper trail." That's as much as he could do. Fast forward, in the time that Melissa's missing, her daddy is arrested for the crimes that he committed in the 70s. So he killed multiple people in the 70s, got away with it for 25 years. He is now sitting in prison. He contacts the detective that arrested him and said, "Will you come to the prison and meet with me?" To that detective's credit, he did. And he said, "My daughter's missing. I'm now stuck in prison. I can't do anything about it. I can't search for her. I can't do anything. But you caught me after 25 years, so you must be a pretty good detective. Will you look for her?" And that detective said yes. So one of the first things he did, he took the radius of her home and found in that radius is this skull. And he said, "Y'all don't think that's this missing girl?" So they got the dental records, cross-checked it, and the skull was Melissa. And that started a homicide investigation, but Atlanta lost 4 years. 4 years. Now, everybody knows the first 48 is critical. James, can you imagine losing 4 years? So then, you're trying to make up time and you're trying to figure out how to do it from there. And they went to work and did some good work. And then one detective retired, and the next one comes on, does some good work. Then it goes to the cold case squad. They did some good work, and it just went from there. And then by the time I got involved, we tried to do some good work, and we tried to do some things that had never been done. Like a geographical profile had never been done. So we gave them that and tried to do some things. And so the book basically is how I used her dad, a serial killer, to try to catch a killer. So he helped in a lot of ways. Number one, he was her father, so he was able to give some of the victimology, which I thought was really important. He was also a killer, so he could give information why he killed versus why this person would have killed his daughter. Completely different killer. He hated the term serial killer, that it was given to him. He even said to me, I am no Ted Bundy. He understood a serial killer kills the same type victim over and over. They hunt for victims. He did not think a serial killer is somebody that kills more than 3 people. He killed 5 people. And he will tell you, if he could today, and he told me multiple times over a cell phone and in letter writing, that he didn't think he killed anybody that didn't deserve it. So the first person he ever killed was a man that beat his aunt almost to death. He, to the day he died, had no problem with that. Now, he did say he was 25 at the time that he committed these crimes, and he did not realize until Melissa was murdered what he did to the families. As a 25-year-old man, he said it never crossed his mind. But when it happened to him, he knew what he had done to all the friends and families and neighbors and teachers and everybody. And it was awful for him to accept that, knowing how he was feeling, helpless, scared, upset, angry, that he had done that to all these other
people. Was this case one you worked on yourself, or was it part, did some of it be given to what I meant by yourself, was it given to the students? Was it part of the student teacher thing, or just you with the professionals?
Melissa's case or Carl's case? Because we didn't do anything with Carl's case except review it.
With Melissa's.
With Melissa, it was primarily experts. We used pockets of students, but primarily it was experts. But here's the reason you want to always involve your students. And I'm just going to be straight up with you and your audience. When it comes to technology, I will never catch up, ever. I'm never programming nothing. I am not going to develop an app. I am not going to understand internet versus Wi-Fi. I'm just telling y'all the truth, okay? But I've got people that are 16, 17, 18, 19 that can. So I don't want to miss anything. So I like to include every generation, every socioeconomic, every race, every religion that I possibly can. What am I missing? What do we need to do? What can we do? What do you see that I will never see? And that has always been beneficial. The pockets of students that looked at it, they agreed with us. They saw the same type of thing we did, that, once you get somebody and you go down 5 different avenues and it leads you to the same person, you cannot ignore that. That ain't tunnel vision. So that's what we started to do with this case. And I saw that her dad could possibly draw this person out a little bit. So that's what we started to try to do, is say, hey, if we can get her dad quoted in a paper, will he respond somehow? So that's the type of thing that we did.
Well, we're a couple of things. We're not going to, I think, because we're now getting really interested as to, again, I'm going to just make this assumption that obviously you probably wouldn't want to write it if it wasn't solved. So I'm going to guess the murder is solved. Wink, wink. No, okay. So, but again, the book's coming out in a little, and then I'll know along with everyone else. And so obviously all the hard work will show at least where it came together, and the help of the gentleman involved, which makes this incredibly fascinating. So again, I'm hooked. I think it's, like you said, things you just don't see. And again, all the people I've come across, you've got weird Jack the Ripper in London and crazy things. But yes, a white. Now, this woman, Melissa, you said, correct?
Mhm.
I'm guessing she was not a drug addict. She was not a prostitute. She had a family. Did she have a husband or not?
She was 21 years old, married to her high school sweetheart, had a 1 and 2 year old that she loved desperately. But one more thing I will tell you and your audience, when I say experts, and this ain't name dropping, this happened. And I was assigned to the major case division the first time. The prosecutor that was also assigned to that division, we became fast friends and are close to this day. And she helps me on these cases. She was instrumental in helping on this case, and that's Nancy Grace. It just happened that she went on to be Nancy Grace. But in the early 90s, we had a great time in Atlanta, and she was such a help. Joe Scott Morgan helped on this case, who has body bags and,
Yep.
has a solid background. Joe Jackalone walked me through it. Barbara Butcher walked me through it. I mean, there are people that helped on this case that I think y'all will not only recognize, but see the benefit that even if you reach these people and you don't have the conclusion you want, maybe not, but you had the best helping you. And it was for the right reason, because a lot of folks, they could not get past that I was working with a serial killer. The reality is, and I just want people to understand, when 911 rings today, I don't know who's on the other end of that line, but I know I'm going. And I had people that I respect a whole lot saying, how in the world could you, basically assist this person? Again, how could you not? And my whole thing is, the sins of the father have nothing to do with what happened to her. And you've got somebody out there that not only murdered somebody, but they chopped them up. They beheaded and dismembered her, put her in 5 trash bags, and threw her in a junkyard. I don't know about you, but I don't want that person pumping gas next to my daughter. I don't want that person playing golf next to my son. I don't want that person eating dinner next to any of my sisters. I want them in prison where they belong. So,
again, I don't think this is giving too much away, but I'm just curious, did the person who did it, and this is again assuming he was caught, but he's a he, was this a one-off, or had he killed before?
one-off.
Okay. And then again, you got to get the book to find out why she was the victim, and sometimes that could have made it easier or harder. Again, what the nexus was between the two of them. When I'm not, if it's his, her uncle or something, I don't want to know that now. I will get it when I read the book. So we covered that case.
That's the whole thing. Who knows? You don't solve them all, James.
You don't. And what's funny is some of the ones that were on here that are the list of your notable cases, a couple of them, as I told you off air before we started, I've covered with authors or other people. And I almost know what the I don't know the word I'm looking for, but why this was interested to dig into. Some are cold, some get solved. Some get solved in the sense, okay, we know, but there's one on here, and we've had one up here in my area, Boston area, where it was supposed to be a suicide by hanging, and it's not. It was strangulation, and by a policeman, of all people. And so, and the experts come in and they say, the Heidel bone and all that stuff. No, there's no way. In fact, the one that was up here in Boston, they closed the case, and the family brought in Park Dietz. And Park Dietz came in and said that this is not, and it was a case similar to the Rebecca, and I never can pronounce her, Zahau, Zahau. And up here it was, her name was Birchmore. And, he came in and said, he didn't know to say a lot about it, except just there was enough in his mind to say this was not suicide. The case then went forward, and clearly there's been a charge, not a trial yet, but all the other evidence then comes forward. She was pregnant, and a good chance that he thought it was his child, and he's married and all that. So that comes out. But one of the ones that I haven't done yet, but I find it fascinating. I don't know what, and again, as I mentioned the name, I'm just curious what you or the students, what you were looking at. I mean, it might have been just an exercise. And so you have the evidence, and here's the exercise, because we know the outcome of the Susan Powell case. So, just to give a little background to my audience, the Susan Powell case is very strange, lots of twists and turns, and caught my eye because it's a lovely woman, Susan Powell, married to her husband Joshua, and they had two lovely children, Charlie and Braden, young boys. And again, started out as a fairy tale marriage, and then he was strange, and his family were very strange. They, for a while, stayed with his father, Stephen Powell, who, I'm sorry, no, he was a pervert. And he was very attracted to Susan, made passes at her, took her underwear, took pictures of her in the bathroom, all this crazy stuff. And at one point, Josh decides he's going to take the two boys. This is his story, of course, that he's taking the two boys out camping in the middle of the night. And so he goes out to the desert somewhere, and they're camping in their SUV. And when they come back, or during, finally the Susan has disappeared. No one can find her. Her family can't find him. Her phone was left behind, and he's trying to claim she was on the trip with them. The boys, one of them at one point says she was in the trunk. So she has disappeared, and several years go by, and no one finds her, the body, nothing. She's gone, and the boys are with the father. And even though as weird as grandpa is. And so during a time, her parents decide to petition for some custody because they're afraid of Josh, and goes to the courts. And they do put on an order where there has to be supervised visits. And long story, horribly short, at one point during one of the visits, the social worker drops them off at where he's living now, and is supposed to go in with him. He opens the door, the boys go in, he slams the door and locks it. And of course, the social worker is very concerned, and she calls back to her supervisors. But before anyone can get there, the house explodes, and they're all killed. And the awful part of it is when they get in to bring in the investigators, the boys were killed with axes or hatchets or blunt instruments before, and they might have been alive when he set the fire, the explosion to blow up the house. So what did you or your group of students, what were you working on Susan Powell?
Ann Bremner, the defense attorney, asked us to take a look at that and see if we could figure out where the searches needed to happen to recover her. So that's one of the first things we did. In doing that, we had to really concentrate on her husband, obviously, and statements that he made and things like that. So we are the group that said the children needed their own guardian ad litem or attorney, because we had some real concerns with statements that he had made, the way, we think he treated his wife, and that may now be put onto the children. So we thought the children were in danger.
And you just surprised the hell out of me by telling me that you were involved before. I mean, when you said, well, we're looking for the body, I said, okay, that's the only thing left. Where's poor Susan Powell, which at this taping, I don't believe they found her or any parts of her that. So I didn't know you were involved in trying to work on that end of it. So you were one of the people, you were probably one of the few, as I'm reading the various books on it, that got concerned about the children and what, that they were in danger. So let me just, a couple of others, the ones that I know about. This is fascinating. We'll go as far as we can go here. What did you do with, well, again, it was missing for a while, and then she's found, Chandra Levy.
We worked on that case quite a while, and her mom reached out to us for help. And so one of the first things we did was we looked at other cases around there. And of course, there were two other attacks in Rock Creek Park. And they were both petite women with curly brown hair, and they all had the Walkman. So we thought this fit the profile. So when she was attacked, and what he did the first two times, women were jogging in Rock Creek Park, and he waited till the end of their run to attack them, so they were fatigued. So Chandra, the end of her run was actually up a hill. So she had the Walkman on with the music, so she wouldn't have heard him coming behind her. And then when he got her, I think what he wanted to do was tackle her, you know, make her submit because of the knife, because he didn't kill the other two. But I think when he tackled her, maybe something went wrong. Maybe he accidentally stabbed her, hit an artery. I don't know. But nobody else was tackled down a ravine. So, you know, we thought he looked good for it. He was tried and convicted for it, and then later, you know, released. But you would have a hard time convincing me it wasn't him. I mean, we don't live in a world of coincidences in our world, in our job. And, you know, you've got 2, now 3, you know, but he's been deported. I don't know what happened to him since, but, you know.
And this is interesting too. You're mentioning cases that are pretty far apart. So you and your group or something, again, I keep saying nice things to you and you poo-poo it, but you must have been famous enough or connected to someone else who then said, oh, you want Sheryl. And so you're not just doing things down in Atlanta or that area. You are all over. I mean, I'm looking at your list of cases. You got the Zodiac. He's on the West Coast. You've got Chandra Levy. You got Tupac. Obviously, he's. You've got the Boston Strangler. You got Natalie Wood. What'd you do on Natalie?
We're the group.
She fell off the boat. Come on, she fell off.
She fell off. How would you fall off wearing a nightgown? And why would your husband, if you fall off accidentally, wait 4 hours to call for help? So we're the group that did one of the reenactments. We're the group that helped get the death certificate changed to accident to undetermined. Because I'm not convinced she fell off anything. And we got to work with her sister, Lana, who is old Hollywood herself. She's a Bond girl. And, you know, she told stories about Natalie, and again, the victimology was so helpful. And one thing she said was that Natalie was very aware that she was Natalie Wood all the time, and that when she was out in public, her fans wanted to meet Natalie Wood. So nowadays, it's pretty common if you meet somebody famous, they've got a hat on and no makeup and sunglasses. They don't look famous. They don't look like they do on the big screen. So I challenged our students at the time. I said, go online, find me the worst picture of Natalie Wood you can find, because her sister's telling us she looked perfect all the time. There's one picture, James, where she's walking down a beach. She's in a one piece. Her legs are perfect. Her hips are perfect. Everything is perfect. Her hair's perfect. Her eyes are closed. That's the worst picture we could find of this woman. So what her sister tells us, we find to be true. She said she dressed up and put on full makeup to lay out by her own swimming pool. So this woman is found in the ocean wearing a flannel nightgown. Natalie would have died if she thought anybody even knew she owned a flannel nightgown, much less be seen in it. So that's not something she was going to go out on that boat and get in a dinghy and go to shore in a flannel nightgown. Did not happen.
And of course, to date, it's like I said, the death certificate and whatnot, it becomes, it resurfaces every once in a while or whatever. I mean, I want to go through all these, but we can't. We all have our time. I'm supposed to do dinner tonight, so I got to be careful. But I do want to ask about Rebecca Zhao. And this case, I did cover this case in a podcast. Is a case very strange because it was deemed suicide in the beginning, that a young woman hung herself, which is not unusual. But what was unusual is that she was bound at the wrists and the ankles, and hands behind her back, and was off a balcony. Hanging. So, although not unusual, because some people will say that there are documentations of incidents throughout the country where people have secured their feet and hands to commit suicide to prevent themselves from changing their minds. But I just find it strange that, she was found nude, as I say, bound the way I said with her over the balcony hanging and dead. What did you look into in that case? I think they charged someone, but I believe now I forget. This was one I did a long time ago. Was he either acquitted or spent some time for something else he did? But is he ever been, did they change it from suicide to homicide?
Yeah, our main thing, and again, this one came to us through Ann Bremner. We had a knot tying expert, and we tried to see if we could reproduce what she did allegedly to herself to throw herself over that balcony, and could any of our students tie themselves up that way. We could not reproduce it at all. At all.
Well, let me take one more case from you. One that, I mean, is interesting or as wow as probably not, or you would have written another book about it, or maybe you have, or you're in the process. What is another case that just either A, was like amazingly either different, and maybe even more importantly, that you had you and your whoever's helping you, even the famous people like Nancy Grace, that you had an impact. Obviously, the case covered in Swans Don't Swim in a sewer is a big impact if it was solved, but I'm just not going to say anything. So what's another one that's, I won't call it a favorite, but one that you think is meaningful?
I'll tell you one that I just recently got to be involved in, and it's going to come out on Discovery sometime this summer. And that is the escape from Alcatraz. Did they or did they not make it? And I got to look at it from a CSI point of view. Is there anything forensically that we could prove one way or another? So we got to go back to Alcatraz twice. We got to test some things. We got to even go to Brazil. So it's going to be, I think, something that I will never forget. It's one of the cases that I became super aware of when I was a little girl. It's one of the cases that kind of hooked me into this whole thing. So to be able to work on that scientifically was a gift.
Now, this is a case of someone who disappeared and was assumed to have escaped, correct?
The Anglin brothers, John and Clarence Anglin, they escaped. And the official word from the government is they drowned or was shark attacked in San Francisco.
Wow. Well, this is fascinating, and again, I'm keeping to push the book because I want to find out. I want to find out how it ends. And has anyone contacted you yet? That's why I'm glad you talked to me. I always get these people too. I wait a couple of weeks. Oh, if you got me last week, but now I've signed a contract, and they won't let me talk. And it says, what are you talking about? Anyway, so I'm glad that you were able to do. But is there any interest in it?
You talk about interest as far as people pre-ordering, or interest as far as...
No, I'm talking about make movies with it, Netflix and everything.
I've had tons of people contact me already, but I'm waiting for it to come out and see what the public really thinks, and then see maybe which way we need to navigate this.
That's smart.
There's been a lot of interest so far, and some people, title alone, want to know more about it. They want to know how I came up with the title. I had one woman reach out, and she said, "Is that a Southern thing?" And it just made me laugh. Now,
was this again, because I asked another author once, and I liked the title. It was okay. She said, "Well, that's not what I wanted." But the editor or whatever, I didn't have a lot of envy. They were going to publish it, and she said, "Okay, it wasn't horrible," but she had a more clever. I said, "Listen to the authors. They wrote the book. They probably have a better idea what they should call it."
This is my title for sure.
Good.
But it's not a Southern per se, but.
Now, is there anything you want to say as we wrap up? Anything you want to?
You mentioned where you are, and I did get to work on Boston Strangler. That was awesome, and it's probably one of those things that is going to stay on the resume no matter what. It wasn't a difficult thing. When we were done, I got to meet with Casey Sherman, the nephew of... I
love Casey. I've done 2 Casey Shermans. He's the best.
Yeah.
He's the best.
And he wrote a book, Rose for Mary, that the students read and all that. And then I got to meet with the lead detective's sons, and they showed me the entire case file their dad had put together. So I had 2 opposite worlds coming at me, because Casey did not believe it was Albert DeSalvo. And of course, the sons did believe it was Albert DeSalvo. And, so our plan of action, we said, well, you've got DNA from Mary Sullivan, dig up Albert DeSalvo and cross-check it. And that's what they did to solve Boston Strangler.
So, well, good luck on the unveiling.
Thank
Very
you.
excited about that. And so again, I want to thank you for appearing today. Wishing you continued good luck. I'll probably come back as I start reading the book and finding other things about you. These little Momo stories that you have are great, and I'm hoping that people the same thing. They may want to reach out to you to do something like this, which is great. They get everything is contacts, whatever. Like I said, Casey Sherman, whatever. We all know all these people.
Yep.
You know it on a different side. So once again, I want to thank Sheryl McCollum.
James, thank you so much. I'm sorry it took so long for us to connect, but this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
So I'd like to thank you folks for kindly tuning in for another episode of Murder Most Foul. If you liked what you heard, I hope you'll tell your friends. Information about the podcast and an email link that can get a message to me can be found at the podcast's website, the address being www.murdermostfoul, all one word, no caps, no spaces, .com. So until we meet again, stay safe, and for God's sakes, don't murder anyone.